Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning guys. Let me introduce myself. My name is Alifah Putri Naziha with student number 20211945543. Here I will analyze financial statement 3 years ago from two companies engaged in the food and beverage industry, namely PT.Indofood and PT.Mayora. While in this PPT, I will explain a little about the profiles of the two companies. Introduction. The first, PT.Indofood Sukses Makmur Tbk is a growing company in Indonesia and is a public company, and is also a type of company engaged in the food and beverage industry. PT.Indofood Sukses Makmur Tbk was founded in Jakarta on August 40, 1919 and was founded by Sudono Salim Peter Santoso. Among the products by PT.Indofood Sukses Makmur Tbk are noodles, ice cream, snacks, biscuit, wheat flour, syrup, milk, cooking oil, and pasta. The second, PT.Mayora Indah Tbk is an Indonesia-based company engaged in food production industry that has high quality and has received many awards. Located in Tangerang with the first target market in Jakarta and its showroom, this PT.Mayora Indah Tbk is engaged in food and beverage processing and was first established in 1997 and continues to grow until now. Based on the company's articles of association, the scope of activities of PT.Mayora Indah Tbk itself is running a business that is engaged in the trading industry, as well as in the field of agents or representatives for the production of PT.Mayora Indah Tbk, and its subsidiaries are generally classified into two categories, namely the field of processed food and beverage. The financial ratio formula consists of several ratios, namely, the first is liquidity ratio, consists of two ratios, namely, current ratio and quick ratio. The second, activity ratio, consists of two ratios, namely, inventory turnover and total asset turnover. The third, leverage ratio, consists of two ratios, namely, total debt ratio and debt or equity ratio. The fourth, profitability ratio, consists of two ratios, namely, gross profit margin and operating profitability margin. The current ratio decreased from 2.50 in the year 280 to 1.81 in the year 290 and continued to experience a significant decline of 1.37 in the year 220. The overall current ratio of all 3 years has more than 1, so say that the company has sufficient current assets to pay off its current liabilities. The quick ratio does not include inventory in its current assets because inventory is not as liquid as cash. The fast ratio showed the same trend, with the low current ratio decreasing from 1.40 in the year 280 to 1.25 in the year 290 and continues to experience a significant decline namely 20.97 in the year 220. The second, activity ratio in PT.Indofood. At 3 years ago, the activity ratio is used to determine how efficiently an organization uses its capital to generate income. Inventory turnover decreased from 4.57 in the year 280 to 5.58 in the year 290, but decreased again to 4.93 in the year 2020. This means that raw materials are converted into inventory much slower in 290 and faster in 280 and 220. Secondly, asset turnover, this ratio has increased from 0.76 in the year 200 in the year 2080 to 0.79 in the year 2090. This shows that the company's efficiency in using its assets to generate sales. The third, leverage ratio. Leverage ratio are meant to show us how efficiently companies use loan funds and whether the level of leverage is higher or even has the opposite value. Beside, on the table show the total debt ratio has decreased from 48% to 44% and has increased to 51%. This means that the total assets financed by the company's creditors have decreased and also increased in 2020. The debt-to-equity ratio measures the amount of debt used relative to debt capital model provided by the owner. Debt-to-equity shows the same trend as the debt ratio. Debt-equity ratio decreased from 1.47 to 0.77 and increased at 1.06 in the year 2020. This shows that in 2020, every ₹1, the shareholders have invested the company owns about. The company is not able to generate sufficient profit to pay off the company's debt. The fourth, profitability ratio. Profitability ratio allows investors to measure how much profit the company is making in relation to a certain level of income, a certain levels of assets, and the owner's investment. Simply put, the profitability ratio helps one to determine the potential of the company to make a profit. The table shows the profit margin of PT.Indofood is increasing year by year, 2080 to 2020, from 21.71% to 24.66%. Operating profit margin is measured to effectiveness of the company to generate profits with all available assets. from the table above, OPM has increased from 2080 to 2020. Financial statement at the PT.Mayora in the 3 years ago. The first, profitability ratio. The first, liquidity ratio. Current ratio increased from 2.65 2080 to 3.43 and continues to increase 3.69. The overall current ratio of all 3 years ago has more than 1, so say that the company has sufficient current assets to pay off its current liabilities. The second, activity ratio. The activity ratio is used to determine how efficiently a company uses its assets or costs. Research. To make a profit, an inventory turnover based on the table shows an increase from 5.27, then increased again to 6.30, and then decreased to 6.12, meaning materials are converted to inventory much later in 2020. Secondly, total asset turnover ratio down from 1.37 experienced a decrease of 1.31 and decreased to 1.23. This indicates a decrease in company efficiency when using the assets to generate sales as it declines every year within 3 years. The third, leverage ratio. Leverage ratio are meant to show us how efficiently a company has used loans funds and if the amount of leverage is high or even vice versa. The table below shows that the total debt to ratio has increased by 0.51 and decreased by 0.48 and also remains 0.43. The debt to equity ratio is referred to as the RAIS ratio or gearing. Debt to equity ratio shows the same trend as debt ratio mentioned earlier. Debt to equity ratio shows a decrease of 1.6 to 0.92 and continues to experience a decrease of 0.75. The fourth, profitability ratio. Profitability ratio allow analysis to evaluate the company's profits and are also related to a certain level sales, specific asset levels, and owner investment. Simply put, profitability ratio allows us to assess a company's ability to make money. The fourth table 2.4 shows the profitability measure of PT.Mayora Indah Makmur Tbk from 2080 to 2020. Profit margin measures how efficient the operation of a company are and how well it controls costs. From the table above, the profit of PT.Mayora Indah Tbk has increased from 2080 to 2020, which is from 21% to 22.97 as stated in the comprehensive income statement. Sales in the increase in 2090 has increased because sales and net profit have increased simultaneously time compared to 2080 net profit, which boosted profit margin. Operating profit margin or OPM, measures the overall effectiveness of management in generating profit with exciting exits. From the table above, OPM has increased from 2018 to 2020, which is from 80.63% to 10.37%. This means that every Malaysian rupiah PT Mayora Indah Tbk. This means that every rupiah PT Mayora Indah Tbk invested in assets in 2080 generates 8.63 rupiah of net profit. Therefore, PT Mayora Indah Tbk have to reduce their costs and expenses to increase the company's OPM. That the higher the OPM, the better the management of the company. Cross-sectional analysis. Add to company in the year 2080. The first, liquidity ratio. From the table, we can see that the liquidity ratio of PT Mayora Indah Makmur are all higher than PT.Indofood, except for the cash ratio because PT Mayora has a cash ratio of 0.52, while PT.Indofood has a cash ratio of 0.56. This shows that when other companies in the utility industry, PT Mayora is better safer investation. The second, activity ratio. Inventory of PT Mayora Indah Makmur 5.28. 5.27 is higher in value than PT.Indofood 4.57. This means that PT Mayora Indah Makmur is subject to change raw materials into inventory quickly. PT Mayora Indah Makmur's total asset turnover is 1.37 higher than PT.Indofood. This means that PT Mayora Indah Makmur is more efficient in using assets to generate sales than PT.Indofood. Overall, PT Mayora Indah Makmur seems to be more active than PT Mayora in 2080. The third, leverage ratio. PT Mayora Indah Makmur's inventory is 0.51 lower than PT.Indofood 0.49. This means that PT Mayora Indah Makmur may change raw materials into inventory is quite slow. The total asset turnover of PT Mayora Indah Makmur is 1.06 lower than PT.Indofood, which is 1.47. This means that PT.Indofood is more efficient in using assets to generate sales than PT Mayora Indah Makmur. However, PT Mayora Indah Makmur seems less active than PT.Indofood in 2020. The fourth, profitability ratio. From the table, we can see that PT.Indofood's profit margin is 21.71% better than PT Mayora Indah Makmur, which is 21%. Maybe here I have a little mistake about the placement between company 1 and company 2 because in this profitability ratio, PT.Indofood is indeed more better than PT Mayora Indah Tbk. The higher the profit margin, the greater the percentage of each rupiah of sales. Conclusion. As we can see, compared to the two companies, the profitability ratio of PT Mayora Indah Makmur is lower than PT.Indofood. PT.Indofood is more profitable and has a higher EPS because they manage to have a higher profit margin, 21.71%, PT.Mayora Indah Makmur has not success in generating higher profits with sales levels certain assets levels or in terms of owner investment. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.